Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, February 28th. It's about 400 albums coming out this week. I got 10 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 400 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 10 of them on the show, though, today. So if something you're looking forward to that I don't have on here, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them and a bunch of other ones that I can't fit in the show today. So I've been a big Eminem fan for a long time, so I'm definitely looking forward to this new 20th anniversary release of Encore. Came out back in 2004, so technically the 20th anniversary was last year, but it was his fifth studio album. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to be on blue vinyl. It's going to run you about $40. So when this album first came out, it was supposed to be Eminem's final album. I'm not sure why he had planned it to be that way, but obviously it wasn't because he just released a new album last year. But this album, when it first came out, it was met with a lot of really mixed reviews. Lyrically, I still think it showed a lot more of the comedic side of Eminem than his earlier albums. I think it's why critics weren't really warm on this album. But commercially, it did great. Sold over 11 million copies, hit number one in a bunch of different countries. And even Eminem is on record as saying it's his least favorite album of his. But I know he was going through a lot of addiction issues during the recording process. Some of the tracks got leaked before the album was released, and he recorded some new stuff for the album. It didn't maybe quite work the way he wanted it to, but I've always loved this album. This was the album where I really started getting into Eminem. So $40 is a little on the pricier end for me, but if I can grab it for a few dollars cheaper than that, maybe I'll grab a copy of that this week. Then you've also got Sex Pistols Live in the U.S.A. 1978 coming out. So this is the first of 3 releases that are coming out over the next couple of months in celebration of the 1978 U.S. tour, which was basically the end of the original period of the Sex Pistols. So this is the January 5th show in Atlanta. It's going to run you about $30. It's going to be on red vinyl. And then next month, they're going to release the Dallas show on March 28th. And then the month later, on April 25th, they're going to release the San Francisco show. And on April 25th, you're going to be able to get all 3 of these together in a 3 CD box set. The 3 performances that are part of this set really kind of showcase the last days of the Sex Pistols before it all kind of fell apart and the band imploded. They would, of course, reform in what the middle part of the 90s, but, it was never the same what it was, in the later part of the 70s. It's also the first time that these shows have ever been available in full. I'm not the biggest Sex Pistols fan. I think I'm on record saying that multiple times, but I understand the importance of the band and the importance of that album and really these shows in the U.S. here also. So it's definitely one I'm looking forward to. We've also got Love You by Adam Sandler coming out this week. This is the soundtrack to his Netflix special from last year. It's going to run you about $38. I have to admit, I have not seen this yet. I know reviews have been really kind of all over the place. I've seen some really glowing reviews for this. I've seen other reviews. I saw one review that called it dog shit. But, I understand that Adam Sandler's comedy is not for everyone. I've loved most of the other specials he's done over his career. I understand that his brand of comedy really hasn't evolved a whole lot over the years. I think if you're an Adam Sandler fan, you'll probably enjoy this. I don't think he's probably going to draw in any new fans with this. It's something I'll watch, in the coming days probably, but it's something I don't need to have on vinyl. You've also got John Lee Hooker, the Standard School broadcast recordings coming out this week. It's going to run you about $28. This is a long lost and probably mostly forgotten about recording from 1973. It's available in full for the first time. So the Standard School recording was a series that was started back in the 20s. It was broadcast on NBC Radio. It was these albums were shipped off to schools, all for educational purposes. So in the middle part of the 70s, there was a 10 LP series that was put together. And the series was dedicated to musical instruments or learning about musical instruments. And these John Lee Hooker recordings were part of that series, but it's never been released in full. It's going to run you like $28. It's not a bad price for a new release. And this is really cool. This is something I'm definitely looking forward to. I've been trying to get more into blues over the last couple of years. John Lee Hooker is definitely one that I really love, a lot of the stuff I've heard from him. So it's definitely one I'm going to check out this week. There's also an absolute classic getting reissued this week. This is Ace of Spades by Motorhead. Came out back in 1980. It was their fourth studio album. This is a half-speed master. It's going to be on blue and white vinyl. It's going to run you about $28. This is all being released in celebration of the band's 50th anniversary. This is one of those albums where I've long considered this one of the most influential, one of the most important albums of early part of the 80s. When Rolling Stone magazine did their list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, I think this was like number 407 or 408. And it's one that, surprisingly, I don't have one in my collection. I've almost picked up a copy of it a couple of times, and for one reason or another, I end up putting it back. I probably will grab a copy of it this week. And this is listed as a limited edition release, which they don't really say how limited it is, so I doubt that it is. I know they put that on a lot of newer releases, more of a marketing ploy than really anything else. So, that's one I'll keep my eye on this week. And then you've also got Limp Bizkit Live at Rock in Park 2001 coming out. So this was a Record Store Day Black Friday 2023 release. It's going to run about $40. It's going to be on black vinyl. The Record Store Day version that came out in 2023 was on blue and it was on blue and yellow vinyl. But when it came out at Record Store Day, it was an RSD exclusive, so they're not supposed to get reissued. I guess this should have been listed as the RSD first. And I think that 2023 release is still easily available, so I'm kind of surprised that they're reissuing it. But so this is all recorded at Rock im Park, the Rock im Park Festival in Germany. When this was first released, it was only available on CD and DVD. If you wanted to hear in the US, the DVD version was the only one that was available. You'd have to get the CD version from Europe. But when this was released in 2023, it was the first time it was ever released on vinyl. This is being reissued, so I don't really know how popular this album is. It didn't seem like a big mover on Record Store Day Black Friday. Like I said, I've seen this recently in a couple of my local record stores, so I was kind of surprised to see it on the list for this week. I know this album has got some pretty mixed reviews. I think a lot of the issues people have with this album is the mix on it. The mix isn't great. The way they edited this album isn't the best either. It kind of cuts off in between songs. There's no really flow. There's not real flow to the album. You don't get a lot of the crowd noise on here. It sounds more like a compilation of live tracks more than a flow of a typical live album. So over the next month or so, the Black Eyed Peas is going to reissue a lot of their albums in advance of what was supposed to be their Las Vegas residency. I know plans for that have all been canceled, but they're going to do these reissues anyway. So this week they're going to start at the beginning with Behind the Front. It came out back in 1998. It was their debut album. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to be on black vinyl. It's going to run you about $33. If all you know from Black Eyed Peas is they're more like poppier stuff that they would do on later albums, I think you might be a little surprised to go back to the beginning and hear more of a straightforward late 90s hip-hop sound on this album. Commercially, it wasn't as successful as their later albums. I think it only hit 129 or 130 on the Billboard 200. This album, I think, really helped lay the foundation for the success that they would have later in their career. Joints and Jam, I think, was the only single off this album that really got any kind of radio play. At least that's the only single I remember hearing off this album. I haven't listened to this one in a long time, though. I need to go back through and listen to or re-listen to their first couple of albums. You've also got Piece by Piece by Kelly Clarkson getting reissued this week. Came out back in 2015. It was their 7th studio album. 2 LP release is going to run you about $32. To be completely honest, I was always a bigger fan of her earlier pop rock-ish kind of music, more so than her more straightforward pop stuff that she would do on this album, and really kind of the albums before and after this one. But commercially, it was a huge success. Debuted at number 1 here in the U.S., hit number 1 in a bunch of other countries. I think the big issue I've always had with this album is I think it really relied too much on these big over-the-top kind of ballady kind of songs. And I think her pop rock-ish kind of stuff, I think, worked better. If you go back to her first couple of albums, I think there's way better songs on those albums than there was really anything in the middle to later part of her career. The next album is one that I think ended up on my top 20 list of 2024. It is an album that I wasn't really expecting to enjoy as much as I did. But this is I Want to Disappear by The Story So Far. So this is their 5th studio album. It's going to run about $24. I think it's just a restock of the Standard Black version of this. So when the band released the first single off the album, Big Blind, I wasn't really blown away by the song. I guess it was more okay. It's an okay track to me. So, and that was all I listened to before the album came out. I think it's one of those examples where you shouldn't really judge an album off the very first single. There's been lots of those albums where I'll listen to a single and I won't like it, or I'll hate it actually, and end up enjoying the album. I really enjoyed this album. I don't think I had it in my top 10. It was definitely in the 10 to 20 range for last year. But commercially, I think it did pretty well. It hit I think it's number 78 on the Billboard 200, which I think is pretty good for a pop punk album, especially in 2024. But I don't think this is the band's best album. I think what you don't see is probably a better album overall. So if you want to listen to the story so far, that might be a better album to start with. But I thought this was really good. They're one of those bands I don't think has released a bad album so far. It's one I still listen to pretty regularly now. And then the last album I got on my list, I've got this on my list because I kind of have an issue with it. Because this is, I guess, the problem with records nowadays. If you want to complain about Taylor Swift having a bunch of different variants and causing delays, that's really not causing delays. This next album is what's causing delays. This has got to be the 1 millionth time that Rumours by Fleetwood Mac is getting reissued. So their 11th studio album came out in 1977. It's going to run you about $24. Do we really need another copy of this? I mean, there's been so many of them over the last couple of years. I think there was, they had the alternate Rumours that came out for Record Store Day a few years ago. Then I think there was a picture disc version that came out for another Record Store Day. There's been multiple reissues of this over the last few years. This is one of those albums where if you don't already own a copy of it, I mean, do they really need to press more copies of this? Because it's available in every record store. I can't remember, I can't imagine there's any record store out there that's like, oh my God, I wish we had more copies of Rumours. And I get it. I mean, it's a great album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's an album that I would probably put in the top 25 or top 30 of all time. But, it's one of those albums where I feel like every couple of months you're seeing another reissue of this album. And their self-titled album, I don't think is that far behind it either. That's another one of those albums that's been reissued to death over the last few years. But, I guess if you don't have a copy of Rumours and there's not a copy in your record store, there'll be a copy of it available this week. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below and let me know what you guys are looking forward to this week. I'm probably going to grab that copy of Encore. To be completely honest, with that Sex Pistols release, I'll probably wait till April and get the 3 CD box set, because I want to say that's about the same price that you're going to pay for one of these albums. And it's something I probably won't listen to enough to spend. I mean, if all the releases are going to be $30 each, it's going to be almost $100 you're going to pay for the 3 releases. So I'll probably just end up grabbing that on CD. But I probably will grab the John Lee Hooker. I'll probably grab that Motorhead also. I don't know. We'll see what I end up grabbing this week. But let me know what you guys are looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.